Welcome back to another episode of the 80/20 Thought Leadership Podcast. I have Joe Gocool, a senior solicitor at Herrington Carmichael here in the UK, and we are here to talk business growth through M&A, business sale, business acquisition.
There's a huge scope for it's called Phoenixing. So people selling, carrying out a liquidation process and then starting up again the exact same business.
Is that legal?
It's not, but there's appetite for it. Possession is 9/10 of the law. Whoever's got the money is in control of the process. So what you're doing by not having a proper contract in place is giving the buyer the opportunity to not pay you. And then if you want them to pay you, you have to sue them. No one's paying you everything on day one. You're never ever going to get that. So you need to make sure that you put some kind of legal structure in place to say that if I've hit this target, I am getting this payment.
Welcome back to another episode of the 80/20 Thought Leadership Podcast. I have Joe Gocool, a senior solicitor at Herrington Carmichael here in the UK, and we are here to talk all things business growth through M&A, business sale, business acquisition. And I think what's really interesting about this discussion is going to be from both lawyers and a business owner slash business growth partner investor perspective. So it's going to provide sort of everything you need to know about that process, the pitfalls, and what you need to think about. So please welcome to the podcast, Joel.
Thanks, Dylan. It's great to be here, and it's great to be having another discussion with you. I always find it really interesting when we're talking about these kind of things, because from a legal perspective, we need to work really closely with businesses, commercial partners like you, in terms of the growth strategy to make sure that we're implementing the plans that you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think just as a place to kick off then, starting with a plan is number one. A lot of people say, how do you actually prepare for growth through an M&A? And I go, well, why are you growing through M&A in the first place?
Exactly.
That's the first thing to ask yourself, why? And is it actually the most strategic option? Because often when you're growing a business, you've got organic growth, inorganic growth, and everyone always thinks, okay, well, all the big guys are doing it. We're buying smaller businesses. So let's go and do it ourselves. But if you've got a business which actually isn't optimized itself, why are you going and buying another company to throw into the mess?
Exactly. And that comes with not only legal challenges, but also tax challenges, making sure that you've got all of the systems in place and the correct value that you want to achieve before you put the legal structures in place to grow, before you go and acquire more value. Because if you're paying tax on a bunch of on the value of your business at the time before you acquire, that's going to be a low amount of tax than if you're doing that same legal process after you've made an acquisition. So what kind of things do you say in terms of readiness? What are the key three things that people need to be ready before they've decided they want to grow?
So is your business stable in itself? Is it operationally effective? So are you a going concern? Have you got a clear strategy? Have you got any major bottlenecks, or are you solving them at the least? So, are you in a position where you're stable? Yeah. I'd say, is it the right time? Yeah. Right? Is it the right time to grow in that sense? A lot of sectors, hospitality, aviation, they're up and down every 10 years or so with whatever recession or pandemic that's around. So you need to be very careful about when to invest. And then I think the third one is, what are the options? Have we actually weighed up what the right options are? So my best example is if somebody says to me, I want to buy a business, I say, why? And they'll go, because we want to acquire clients in that new area. I go, okay, that makes a lot of sense, right? But if they said, because we want to increase revenue, it's like, well, have you looked at cheaper organic options that don't require you to take out debt capital and things like that? And again, not all acquisitions have to be via debt capital. They can raise equity. They can get investment from strategic investors. But I think those three things are the main ones that I look at. It's all about strategy and preparedness. Yeah. Because most people, when they look at expansion, they look at what everyone else sees from the outside, which is if you're a hospitality group, it's like, we're expanding to 20 new sites. And therefore, that's a signal of success. Whereas when I've been in the trenches with some of these, indeed, hospitality business owners, and it looks like it's great from the outside and the Instagram's popping, actually, the business isn't doing very well. And in fact, they're just duplicating stores that aren't profitable. Yeah. And you're kind of thinking, well, why would you bother expanding when you're only making 900 quid a week in profit from a store, when you could actually go and focus on a different part of that business? Maybe you could launch a sources business, maybe you could do a private hire business, maybe you could pivot into a different sector. Maybe people aren't demanding what you're looking for, what you're selling.
I think the key word that you said there for me that we like clients to think about is optimization of what you've already got. And that sounds like the theme of what you advise your clients. Make sure that you're actually getting the best out of what you've got already before you take that next step, because it comes with so much risk in terms of reputationally, legally, tax and accounting, all of those things in terms of growing. Some people, and I'm sure you must have some examples of when people go too early. If you go too early with your acquisitions and your growth, then you're just set up to fail.
Yeah, it's just chaos. I mean, chaos is the one word I'd put in there. Is like, if you're struggling, if you're treading water today, what do you think buying another business is going to do to that?
Yeah.
It's the same actual thing with strategic hires too. A lot of people think, oh, well, I'll get somebody from so-and-so big business to come and run my mom and pop store style business. It's like, well, actually, no, they were a middle manager at Unilever. They actually know nothing about running a department.
Yeah.
And they're going to come in and completely screw your business up. Actually, that's the most common theme I've seen in any business that's around the 1 million to sort of 30 million turnover mark, right?
Yep.
You know, established, doing well, is they make a strategic hire based on, oh, well, we'll go for somebody who worked in a big business. And I've worked in big businesses before. I've consulted for big businesses before as well.
Yep.
And the people there don't know what they're doing any more than the small businesses, except they're protected by a huge big buffer of financial margin. So when you hire a financial controller who was maybe a finance director at Deloitte, what do they know about running a construction business in the Midwest?
Yeah.
Like, it just doesn't add up to me.
So the label doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be immediate success.
No, it's like just because you went to a good university doesn't mean you're very smart.
Exactly.
Right? You passed some tests.
Yep.
Right? So I think all of this is about being prepared. And if we go back to the legal side of things, being prepared is about having the right contracts in place too. I had a conversation just before this one with one of your colleagues specifically about that. Is like, if you go to raise capital to grow, or you go to buy another business and employment contracts aren't in place, shareholders agreements aren't up to date, buyback schemes weren't structured properly, the whole deal falls apart.
Yeah.
And that's part of being stable. Being stable isn't just being going concern and having profit, but it's having the right legal contracts in place too.
So one of the things that I do as a corporate lawyer is my kind of mission is to help businesses grow through acquisitions.
Yeah.
So buying businesses or putting other legal structures in place. So franchising, I do a lot with the British Franchise Association and help clients roll out franchising to different structures to your business, different revenue streams.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what I want to do once they've got to the point that they've grown and they're happy with that is to realise that value through an exit. So if most business owners will have a 5 to 10 year plan, maybe less, depending on what kind of person it is, about saying, I want to achieve maximum value in this time frame. And the question they ask me is, how can I do that? The point that we're making about planning, making sure that you've set up a group structure, if that's what you're looking to do, so that you're protecting legally what you've already got before you add more to that group, is absolutely key. There's also steps that you can take now to make sure that you pay less tax later, those kind of things. So getting a lawyer on board, an accountant on board, and someone that's going to do the business strategy side of things like you is really, really key. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the whole stabilizing your business first before you're looking at growth is super important. And I'm going to keep beating that drum because it's absolutely critical. In terms of the M&A process, though, so if you're acting on behalf of a lot of people, at what point in that process do you get involved?
So, as lawyers, we're usually the last to know that the deal's happening. It's normally, we've agreed a deal, we've shaken hands. Either can we put heads of terms in place, or sometimes heads of terms have already been signed. So that's never normally too much of a problem legally, because normally most heads of terms, and obviously I'd always recommend you get a lawyer to review them before you sign anything, but most heads of terms are non-binding except for the exclusivity provisions, so that you won't go and negotiate with somebody else, or the confidentiality provision. So long as if you're happy with those two things, you can largely, from a legal point of view, agree the heads of terms. They don't bind you to the concepts and the terms that you're agreeing. What it does do is give you a really poor negotiation position, because they'll say, okay, well, you've agreed to this in the heads of terms document. Your lawyer's now drafted this, because the buyer's lawyer will draft the first draft, and it's a completely different position. So what we tend to do is, if we haven't been instructed to look at the heads of terms, we'll then immediately contact their lawyer and say, look, we're now instructed to review the heads of terms. Appreciate it's been signed, but they didn't have the opportunity to take legal advice, didn't know the full implications of what they were signing. At that point, we'll then put together maybe like an issues list and say, look, these are the key things that we just want to get on the table now. So ultimately, no one wants to waste their time. If there's a couple of deal breakers which no one had considered and weren't included in the heads of terms, but are required now, then that's when it should be raised, before people start spending money on lawyers and accountants and post-integration things and all those kind of things. So normally it's at the heads of term stage or just after. Ideally, we want to get involved before then, because we can put things in place that will make the process more efficient, cheaper, and less legal risks.
And is it you guys that typically do all the due diligence on behalf of the client, or are you coming in to sort of sign off the due diligence that a team did internally?
So it depends, is the short answer. So for a lot of our kind of buy and build clients, we will have supported them through 5 or 6 acquisitions. So we'll have a temp. If they're acting, everything's in the same sector, then they'll continue to use that same document which we've already given to them. They might, depending on how, I suppose, business savvy they are, their internal personnel, if they've got people that maybe in-house counsel, those kind of things, they might take a first pass at the legal due diligence and just instruct us on an ad hoc basis to look at a few key areas and say, what's your view on this contract? What's your view on the risks here? If there's a completely brand new buyer, then they might ask us to look at everything, so full reporting on all of the legal due diligence. But normally putting that document, that questionnaire together, most business owners that are sophisticated enough to buy another business are able to at least do a first pass on it. And it's a really good way to save legal fees if you can do some of that yourself. But the risk is that you miss something. And that's why a lawyer should probably look over it. You've also got, there's loads of other work streams, depending on what kind of business. If you're, we do a lot of stuff in the financial services space. So if you're a financial services business, you need to make sure that your FCA compliance team are looking at are doing a separate DD exercise from a regulatory perspective. Accounting, financials, making sure that the management accounts that are being produced on a day-to-day basis are actually legitimate and what you're expecting. Because if you look at someone's accounts, they could be up to 16 months old. So what is that telling you about the snapshot of the business that you're buying now? So you need to make sure that all of these key strategic partners are working together to make sure, and then someone that's looking at the commercials is tying this all together. So my view is you can spend as much as you like on due diligence. What you need to consider is the key issues that you're going to face going forward and the key liabilities. Because when you're buying a business, if you're doing it as a share purchase, you're buying a bag of liabilities. You're also buying a fantastic opportunity to grow. But as lawyers, as devil's advocate, often the people that the negative fingers pointed at, you're buying liabilities. So you need to make sure you protect yourself from those liabilities by putting contracts and legal protections in place. And that's the key.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of liabilities, do you guys ever deal with buying the assets of or buying companies that are going into, going bankrupt, in the liquidation process? Do you have a support on that?
Yeah. So we have specialist corporate solicitors that deal with the insolvency side of things. So it's obviously a very, very specialist area. You have to work with the actual liquidators or the insolvency practitioners, depending on what kind of liquidation process it is. But most of the time we see there's a huge scope for what's called phoenixing. So people selling, carrying out a liquidation process and then starting up again the exact same business.
Is that legal?
It's not, but there's appetite for it, shall we say?
But that's what I wanted to actually ask. Like, there's appetite for it, but let's say I own a fish and chips chain. Yeah. It goes bust because pandemic or whatever, and then I get my brother to buy it. Is that?
It's not legal. The regulations around phoenixing are vague, but deliberately so. But the key here is who's bringing a claim to prevent you from doing that.
Your debtors.
Yeah, so if they do and they call you on it, if they call you on it, then obviously there's a huge liability there, and the legal advice would always be not to carry out what we call a pre-pack sale. So something before it's gone into liquidation, administration, whatever, get that sold beforehand, because there's always the risk when it's people that are what we call in the legal world connected people, or even yourself starting up the same business again, using the same clients, same thing. You can't just wipe debt out; it follows you.
Well, that's the important point, because it's quite a lucrative opportunity in the UK. If you build relationships with the liquidators, the court-appointed ones, and you make yourself known to them as, I'm acquiring business in this space, and they could be gross profit £1 million businesses, but they've got bad debts. Yeah. If you swoop in and buy the right assets of that business, you've effectively purchased a profitable company. Yeah. So have you ever helped people with that? Because this is sort of a growing, I've spoken to 3 or 4 people now in the last 6 months who've made a living doing that in the last 5 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do that on a regular basis. We probably do 1 or 2 a month. It's something.
But I mean the other side of it, not the side where you're sort of helping out the person who's just had the business fail, but you're helping out.
No, yeah, the acquirers. Yeah, we do. Yeah, it's a complete legitimate business venture.
Yeah.
It can be very profitable, but what I would say, you need the platform to be able to integrate those clients or those assets or whatever they are immediately, because there's no scope for integration in terms of a handover process from the previous owner. I mean, they're in the wind. They've had a failing business. You're never going to be able to tie them into service agreements or an earn-out or anything like that.
How do you ensure you don't take their debt on?
You do it by way of an asset purchase. So in the contract, it needs to be very clear to say there are a list of excluded liabilities and included assets. So you make sure that you're properly carving out anything that you don't want. So you're cherry picking the parts of the business that you want. There will be a bid process usually in place. So making sure that you make yourself known, should we say, to the insolvency practitioner is worth doing, because they won't just look at value in terms of the overall purchase price. They'll look at the overall deal.
Yeah, because we I mean, actually, as recently as yesterday, we're looking at buying a construction supplies business that's gone bust. Okay. And they would have been 20 mil plus in revenue. Would have been profitable up until recently. Looking at Companies House, looking at some of the drawings and some of the removals that have happened in the last year in terms of directors, there's a lot of fishy stuff going on there.
Right, okay.
But buying that client book would by privy guarantee myself and whoever I joint venture with this on quite a large pipeline almost immediately. So I think this is really overlooked. Buying businesses that are going bankrupt, going to buy the assets, assets purchase agreement is a huge overlooked opportunity. Yeah. Well,
it's property renovation, isn't it? You go, okay, I'm buying this property for, let's say 10% of its value because it's got subsidence. If you know how you can, sort that subsidence out, fantastic. You've got all that growth. Yeah. You've got all that headroom. So making sure that you can accommodate those assets and that you can extract the value out of those assets, it becomes a good business venture.
Yeah. So what if we talk about, in a more positive light than business exits? So positive business exits, in terms of that process, typically when you're dealing with clients who are looking at selling their companies, what stage do they come to you at? What's the majority of them come to you when they've made the decision? Do they come to you a couple of years before? When do they typically approach you to say, hey, we need some...
So we like to kind of carry out core client meetings every year. And we try and ask those questions at the right time. Yeah. It's not always possible. Usually the first people to know are the accountants, because they'll start to talk about their tax planning and all that kind of thing. Yes. So we would ideally find out as soon as possible. But the buy and build kind of clients, that they're on a growth to exit, because no one's just running a business indefinitely. At some point you want to cash out. At some point you want to extract value or pass it on to the next generation. What we need to know as early as possible, is what your goals are, so that we can make sure you've got the legal structure in place to allow you to sell. People like you, I suppose, what kind of messaging are you saying? If someone says to you, look, I've got this business, it's doing okay, and I want to sell it in 5 years, I want to grow for the next 5 years. Is it strategic hires? Is it systems? Is it one of the key things that we see for when businesses don't sell is that there's the MD who's an owner manager, and that person can't be extracted from the business. So you're basically buying their Rolodex. But if he's not or she's not dialing the phone, the Rolodex doesn't even matter, because no one's picking up.
Yeah, I mean, the core things to look at when you're considering exiting, the core things that I look at when I look at businesses, partnering with them on this journey, is what value hasn't been extracted yet. So is that business operating as effectively as possible? Is it in the right part of the market? Has it got the right team, the right people? Before I even look at, the classic thing all the online gurus talk about is, if the business is you haven't got a business, that kind of thing. Yeah, we need to look at that at some point. But the first thing we need to do is make sure, is that business operationally effective? Okay. Is it as profitable, or is it as turnover intensive as it needs to be? Yeah. Has it got the back end, the systems? Has it got processes? Is it future proofed? For example, if I was running a funeral business today and I wanted to grow it for 20 years, I'd be extremely worried looking at the replacement rate of non-Muslims in the UK, because the funeral process is very different for Protestants, Catholics, Muslims. It's all very, very different. Yeah. About 20 years' time, there's going to be a massively steep decline in the number of people having traditional funerals. Right. So have you considered stuff like that, like in terms of the timeline? I'd be looking at selling pretty damn quickly if I was owning a funeral home right now. Yeah. So it's all about tying those things together. Then, yes, it's about, if you've got somebody at the head honcho, or you've got 2 or 3 people at the top who if left tomorrow, the business would fall apart. Then you've got to look at replacing them. There are some businesses where you can't do that as easily, like consultancies. That's very difficult.
Yeah.
You could build a brand consultancy that does the coolest designs for Apple and whoever you want, and you could be 150 headcount with a beautiful office, in Mayfair if you wanted to. You might only get 1.5, 2 times EBITDA on it. So that's a business that maybe I'd say, well, you sure you want to grow this to sell? Why don't we grow this to maximize profitability in your takings for the next couple of years?
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation with your financial planner to make sure we know what you need to have your dream lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then we go from there. So it's all about being outcome oriented then.
Sure.
It's a very strategic thing because, for example, one of the first projects I ever worked on was with a Irish pub chain, and the owner wanted to sell it because they were done.
Okay.
They were completely done. They
Wants to be on the beach.
They wanted, no, as in they hated the business so much. They were, how hospitality is. They were so stressed that they went, I would sell this for £1 and leave if I could. And that went from like a conversation to say, hey, can you help me exit this without being in debt, to us going, well, actually, your 90% of your customers are corporate, which means company credit card. The other 10% are tourists. Why are you charging less than everyone else on the street?
Yeah.
Right?
There's no price resilience there.
Yeah. So let's put prices where they should be. Yeah. By the way, no one's eating food. Fire the chef. Basic menu. Let's use next door and their food if we need to get food in. And by the way, you have a wine cellar with quite a lot of wine in there, like as if you're a Michelin star restaurant. So when you kind of balance all those things out, we went, well, actually, you've got a very profitable business here. You're just running it wrong.
Yeah.
So a lot of the business exit stuff that I look at is going, well, why do you want to exit? Why? And then they go, oh, well, I want money, or I hate my job. And then you go, right, well, why do you want money? Or how much do you need? And they often go, well, I don't really know. And then you go, right, go talk to a financial planner. They'll sort you out. But if on the extent of I hate my business, it's stressful, you go, right, well, last month was actually a great month, but you did these 3 things wrong because these 3 things were in the wrong place. And if you change those things next month, it'll be better. So like hospitality is an example. If you've got a really, really, really bad ops person, or you've got somebody who doesn't really know what they're doing in the finance department, you can turn a really great month into a really bad month. That example could be because you've got the wrong staff in the wrong places. If you're a food truck business, you've sent food trucks to the wrong location. Your revenue's down week by week because you're just not running the business effectively. Yeah. So there's loads of factors. It's not like
it's not the product, it's how it's done.
Yeah. So it always goes back to, why do you want to sell? Okay, great. How much do you want to sell for? And 100% of the time, I'm a huge advocate. Don't have a wealth manager, have a financial planner. They're 2 different things. Financial plan will sit down with you and go, right, you, your family, whoever you support, what do you want? And it's not just what money do you want, but it's what lifestyle do you want? What does your day-to-day look like in 20 years? And then they help you figure out what that number is. And often you either find out, well, actually, that's never going to happen in this business ever. So, killing your dreams would also make you realize you need to pivot. Or you might realize, actually, I'm already there. I can go and exit. But it's having those really clear-cut conversations. Because I would never work with somebody without having that goal in mind. Yeah. Like, you can't be giving somebody advice because they're like, I want to be more profitable. It's like, okay, we can make that happen, but why? Yeah. Like, where do you want to get to? What's the outcome? And that's really strategic because I talk about, again, it's not like a business term, but the efficiency of your revenue. So how easy is it to make this much money? How easy is it to make this much money? And you might be a business, again, I'll take one of the hospitality businesses I work with. They've got food truck, they've got catering business, they've got restaurants. What's the highest profit thing in there? The catering business. Right. Why are we pouring more money into restaurants? Yeah. Why invest another 50K in a restaurant when if we put 50K into food trucks and a salesperson, we'd make 10
your
times
margin's
the amount.
much higher than that.
So it's often just sitting people down and going, just look at this way and it will work out a bit better. Yeah. So I often, interestingly enough, I might get hired to help somebody with selling their business, and then they actually go, you know what? I'm not selling this. Yeah. We're going to go on a journey together.
Well, and this is the thing, even within our firm, we have different work types that are more profitable than others. That are,
absolutely.
You go after the big. Everybody does. That's the thing. So it's making sure that you know where that specific work type or area is, and actually going, right, I'm going to back that.
Absolutely. I mean, it's almost so obvious that you would naturally overlook it. You go, let's say there was a particular type of again, I don't think it exists in your world, but you tell me fixed cost legal advice for one particular outcome.
Yeah.
And that outcome only took an hour to get, but it's 20 grand.
Yeah.
Versus having to work however many hours to get that 20 grand if you're doing an hourly rate. It's like, hold on a sec. We need to look at our revenue model here, because it's same with performance basis. In my world, if I said to you, hey, I'm going to help you grow your revenue, we're going to increase it by 20% in the next year. I'm going to charge you 10 grand a month for it plus VAT. You're going to go, I don't even pay myself 10 grand a month. What's this about?
Yeah.
Why the hell would I pay you that? That's ridiculous. But then you go, well, actually, that 20% is 1.5 million. Right? So you're paying me 120K to make you 1.5 million. I think actually I've got a bad deal.
Yeah.
So it's all about flipping the narrative, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to the legal side of things, the thing that I'd be most fearful of in terms of exiting a business myself would be, and again, because we have the experience in doing earnouts, is one, the earnout, and also how, if you're selling to a much larger business, maybe private equity, they're going to have much more expensive lawyers, and they're going to have much more firepower than you are as a small business. What advice would you give to business owners who have that fear, of being screwed over, basically?
Fundamentally, I think you need to make sure that you know commercially what you're measuring with an earnout. So it needs to be really clear, really objectifiable in terms of you can measure on a formula, maybe, exactly how you're calculating. Most earnouts are done on the basis of some kind of, the ongoing revenue, EBITDA, anything like that. So you need to make sure that you put some kind of legal structure in place to say that if I've hit this target, I am getting this payment, right? I'll then come to you and say, is that what you've agreed? You then need to look at things like what happens if you overperform against the target. Are you going to get an upside to your payment? You should. You've overperformed. You should get an upside. Yep. Equally, there's going to be a proportionate reduction. You need to make sure that reduction is in line with what you're expecting. Normally, whatever the deal multiple was, 3, 4, 5x, whatever, normally that just reverses. So you take £5 off the earnout for every £1 of lost EBITDA, revenue, whatever, if the multiple was a 5x multiple. So making sure that those things are really, really verifiable from a forensic and an accounting point of view, those done on a formula, that's key. The second thing is making sure that you define exactly how that particular metric is measured. So if it's EBITDA, are there any add backs that you need specifically for your business? Making sure that's in the legal contract, because if you ask 3 different accountants to give you 3 different EBITDA valuations, you'll get 3 different answers. I can guarantee you that. So making sure that you've got any add backs that you need within that definition of EBITDA is excellent. That will set you up right. Thirdly, you need to make sure that you've got your accountant on board, and you need to make sure that you put a hierarchy of accounting policies in how the EBITDA calculation or whatever the earnout calculation is going to be made in the actual agreement. So it will say, look, firstly, if there's any dispute between us, we're going to look at what the company historically did in terms of their accounting practices. Next, we'll look at these specific policies, and you put a list of policies in there. Finally, we'll look at the UK GAAP, so the generally accepted accounting principles. So making sure that you've got a mechanism for calculating, and you've made sure that you can actually objectively calculate that is key. You've then got 2 other things I'd say just quickly. One, you need to have an expert determination clause to make sure that if I bought your business and the 2 of us disagreed, we can send that someone else to the Institute of Chartered Accountants. We're going to appoint someone to resolve that dispute. And finally, you need deferred consideration protections. So you need to make sure you've got management controls in there to make sure that the new owner is not going to be playing roulette with your profits, basically, because you're going to be paid out the profits, right? No one's paying you everything on day one. No, you're never ever going to get that, or very rarely would you get that.
I think a lot of people don't realise that as well, actually, in the sale process.
There's no magic pot of money. No. They're paying you out the profits. Yeah. So you need to make sure that you put legal protections in there to keep that revenue stream running for as long as you're getting paid. Once you're paid, you're in the wind, you're on the beach. You don't care. Yeah. They can do whatever you like once they paid you out. It's things like capital controls in terms of saying, right, well, you can't sell my clients on to anybody else. You can't sell the shares on to anyone else. Once that's gone outside of the buyer is the person that you have married as part of that process, right? Do you then want to include someone else in? Someone else is then taking your shares. How do you know that that's not going to prejudice the way in which your earnout is paid? What if it goes to a private equity firm? So it's gone from a trade buyer who's a family company to a private equity buyer who's running everything on a spreadsheet, which is fine, but it is going to impact you. So you need to make sure that you've got the right to stop that process. What we normally do is say that they can't do that without your consent. That then facilitates a commercial discussion. They'll pay you off
leverage,
and you're out. Exactly.
Yeah, because we spoke about this the other week, right? You had a client who was selling their business, or is selling their business still, and they are going to roll some of their equity into the private equity company.
Yeah, and that's a really, really typical structure. And what you'll need to do at that point is you'll have a very hefty investment agreement to make sure that you're retaining the rights and the responsibilities that you think you've got. Now, if you're being put in charge of a business and you're saying, I'm going to now run a division of the buying entity, you need to make sure that you've got all the rights that you need to be able to make the key decisions at the key times.
Absolutely.
Because you're the person that's been running the business, so you're the best person to do that. The legal document needs to reflect that.
Yeah, and in terms of, let's say, again, in my family business, we've had an earnout before, which has gone south.
Okay.
And in all fairness, COVID related, whatever, but a lot of earnouts go south.
Yeah.
More often than not, really. I mean, maybe statistically, I don't know, but from who I know, more often than not, they go south. If we've drafted all the legal things correctly and we have all the clauses and we can sort of prove that we were blocked from doing things, have you seen many successes in claiming back that money?
Yeah, because anybody can bring a claim against anyone in the UK, no matter how spurious, whatever.
Yeah.
But the thing with legal claims is that you have to defend them.
Yeah.
Because they take time, they take effort, you take on risk. If you just don't engage in a legal process, if the buyer doesn't engage in any legal process, you can apply for a default judgment. You could say, look, this person isn't interested, is involving themselves in the process, give me a judgment. You then go and take your judgment. They can get, CCJ, all those kind of things that everybody knows about. That can impact their credit scoring and all that kind of stuff. So you need to make sure that you engage with these legal proceedings. If you've got genuine claim, that is going to go to their legal department, their lawyer. They're going to send it to a barrister, ultimately, who would be defending the claim in court. And that barrister will say, look, you are exposed here. That's going to prompt an offer. So if you don't want to go the whole length of that process and end up and have your day in court and all that kind of thing, then there'll be what's called a Part 36 offer, which is an offer to settle early. So that's what that usually prompts.
Yeah.
If they will not engage with the process, you need to be looking at, have they got any money? Is it worth you even bringing a claim against them? Are they going to liquidate the business? Why aren't they paying? Most earnouts are not paid because of a can't pay scenario rather than a won't pay scenario.
Ooh. Not in a non-trade sale environment.
Yeah, because even anything, as you said, private equity, and those, people don't want the risk of litigation because it's someone's going to be selling. You've sold now, they're selling to bigger fish, they're selling to bigger fish. Every single, I'd say 99% of sale contracts in this country have a clause which says there is no ongoing litigation involving the company, right? That's one of the key things that lawyers look at. So if you can't say yes to that question, they're going to say why. Oh, because you haven't paid one of the people that you acquired a year and a half ago. Why haven't you paid them? Oh, because we just didn't want to. The buyer's going to be looking at that and saying, okay, well, why didn't you pay them? Why do we want to take the risk of them bringing a £100,000 claim against us?
Yeah.
Because you have to defend these things, even if there's no basis to it. But the situation we're describing now is where they just won't pay. There's no reason for it. That the
or
earnout's
they've made it hard to make the earnout.
Yeah.
And you've done everything in your power.
Yeah.
And this is a very common thing, and they've blocked you for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You've got to have the right legal protection so that you can sleep well at night. Because if you didn't, you can't sleep well at night. But if you do, you can just go and sue them.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, all litigation, you should always take it as seriously as possible and think about it really carefully before you do it, because it's time consuming, it's expensive, and it's never guaranteed. Even the best litigators in the country will give you, 60, 70%.
Even if you're in the right?
Even as a slam dunk. Yeah.
Really?
You can. I've turned up in court and we've lost on absolute slam dunks. It does happen. You get the judge on the day. Sometimes it's,
Shame.
exactly. Even things that feel really unpalatable for you happen. So it's always a risk. But making sure you've got the right people that are arguing your case for you is key. And before that, it's making sure you've got those deferred consideration protections. Those are the key things that I want to impart. Those are the things that are going to get you paid ultimately. Having 4 or 5 lines of inquiry in terms of when you're saying, right, my earnout hasn't been paid. You said you weren't going to sell on my clients.
Yeah.
One of the big ones we have at the moment is management recharges. Right. So saying that the buyer is subbing out all of their staff to the company and draining all of the resource. So that's going to artificially suppress your EBITDA. Yep. Making sure you've got a one line in that contract is going to save you lots of money or give you the opportunity to recover a lot of money.
And are you seeing you see many circumstances where people come to you after the fact of selling a business or acquiring a business where they haven't invested in the right legal advice, and these sorts of things have come to light and they've gone, oh my God, I've just sold out.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's unfortunate because, you know, the ship sailed at that point.
Yeah.
All you can do is give them a legal opinion in terms of, is there anything they can do? And that's what you do. You then look at the contract holistically and you try and you sit them down, you talk them through, okay, well, how have things happened since? Is there any way we can say that the parties have conducted themselves in a certain way which has been incorporated into a contract? Very difficult. What you want really is a slam dunk in that bit of paper that hopefully you sign on the day of completion, put in a drawer, never look at again. But if you do, it's the seatbelt.
But that's the thing. It's the seatbelt. It's the
you put it on every time you get in the car.
Yeah. It just works at every stage of your business growth. You've got to have the right legal things in place because it's the opportunity cost.
Exactly. It's all good whilst it's all good.
It's all good whilst it's all good. But like, you know, as we said, people are leaving millions, billions on the table because cumulatively, obviously, they haven't got the right things in the right place. And yes, it's a couple of grand in legal fees, but then at least you can sleep well at night because you've confidence. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing, because being a business owner is very stressful. If you don't have to worry about somebody suing you, or at least if somebody does sue, you've got the right things in place, it's much better.
Absolutely. And it's all commercial leverage, especially when you're selling.
Yeah.
Possession is 9/10 of the law. Whoever's got the money is in control of the process. So if you're waiting for an earnout, then you are literally in the buyer's hands, because there is no way in the UK to get money off somebody unless they give it to you voluntarily, other than by suing them. So what you're doing by not having a proper contract in place is giving the buyer the opportunity to not pay you. And then if you want them to pay you, you have to sue them. That's a big step. You know?
But I mean, that counts, forgetting about M&A and exit, but that also just counts for classic just B2B contracts.
Yeah.
Is if, you know, often people pay late, right? We all know that. Paying late is a huge issue, but not paying at all because of ignorance or because of personal financial struggles, whatever it is.
Yeah.
As long as you've got the right contract in place, you can go after them. Yeah. I think that's the important thing.
Yeah, I think probably the thing to say is that it becomes more proportionate to go after people the higher the value. So some B2B contracts worth in the region of £5,000 to £10,000, you're going to be stuck in a small claims court. So you can go after them, but you're going to be doing a lot of the work yourself. The issue that you have is that legal costs of pursuing somebody can be high. So the legal costs are more palatable and more proportionate the higher the value of the claim. Yeah. So that kind of is the fundamental issue. And when you get into the high level courts, you can recover your legal costs, whereas you can't in the small claims. So that's the issue that you have. But if you've got someone that's, if you're doing kind of B2B deals, you must have someone sensible at your business that should be able to run this kind of process. The small claims court is very user friendly. It's designed to eliminate lawyers because you're specifically not able to recover your costs in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of ways you can make sure that you get paid on time as well. I mean, I was looking through the Xero account of a client on Thursday last week, and they didn't even have automated reminders.
Really?
For their invoices, and I just went, and how soon before due date are you sending the invoices? And like the kind of obvious things. It's like there's a lot of stuff you can do to make sure you get paid, but then, I've had one client, I remember, and he wasn't doing too much in terms of revenue. He was very small, but like a scale up, but they were owed essentially 20% of their annual revenue, but this was only in the tens of thousands. Yeah. And the client just went, nah, come after me then. Just got really mean and just went, yeah, well, you're small, come after me. I dare you.
And what happened?
Nothing happened because couldn't afford to chase them.
Yeah, it's
So
a
that's
shame.
what I mean. In those scenarios, it sucks. But
Yeah.
if he had had an airtight contract that wasn't ChatGPT written,
Yeah.
and he had a lawyer, it could have been a bit more scary.
But you can take practical steps. I mean, it's very rarely practical to take money up front. But if you can take some money up front, you can stage the invoices.
Certain businesses, even B2B, you have to take money up front.
Yeah.
I know we're in the UK, but culturally in some places, in a lot of Asia, you have to take money up front. You won't get paid otherwise.
Yeah.
India especially. Direct debits, that's a big one for wholesalers. Wholesalers get paid late all the time.
Yeah.
Corner shops buying their goods from wholesalers always pay late. Direct debit. And then if you're happy to engineer your pricing model differently, just use Stripe. Use Stripe for something. Take credit cards.
Yeah.
Because yes, you're going to take a 4 to 8% hit, but you get paid.
Yeah.
And chasing people sucks. I mean, imagine you guys have a lot of clients chasing them. Your account department must be busy.
Yeah.
It's
also it's what you're saying as well in terms of those those zero reminders. You want to eliminate any issues that the people that genuinely will pay but just forget to. Sometimes if it's gone to the wrong person or it's landed on a Friday afternoon, someone isn't going to go out their way to pay the invoice. A lot of times people just say, look, I've got the cash. Until I get chased again, then I'll pay it.
Oh, it's common sense as well. Don't send somebody, if the end of the month's on a Friday, don't send them the invoice at 2 p.m. on Friday. Exactly. Maybe send it on the Monday and then a nudge on the Wednesday, and on the Friday morning send them a message to say, hey, if you have to. Most people get paid late though.
Yeah. But it's even just picking up the phone. You get to the real key ones and just pick up the phone to the client and say, look, this is outstanding. They go, oh, sorry, I didn't know that hasn't reached my desk, or finance control hasn't got it, etc. It kind of gets resolved. But as you say, in terms of protecting yourself against the won't payers, legal contracts at the beginning. If you haven't got a legal contract at the beginning, then you are gambling. You're rolling the dice. Simple as. Well, I think that's probably the key summary of this discussion is, from a business operation standpoint, get stable and get clear on where you want to go to. Don't act for the sake of growth. Being big doesn't mean you're successful. What other people see about your brand from the outside doesn't actually translate to your profits. And then obviously, in order to make all of that secure and safe, make sure you have legal contracts from day one and make sure that you have the right advice in high risk or high value transactions, because you've seen it and I've seen it. People have gone bankrupt in the process of selling their businesses. People have lost loads of money. People haven't made their earnouts and they've had haven't had anything left out of it. So it's really, really important to get your structure right and your legal structure in place too. Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Joel. No, thank you, Dylan. As always, it was a pleasure speaking to you. I thought it was a really interesting conversation. Looking forward to the next one. Yeah, absolutely. Cheers. Thanks, Dylan.